Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. My name's Andrew. I'm going to be talking about artificial intelligence. Um, it was a long and arduous journey. I just flew in from Los Angeles yesterday to be here with you guys because, well, first of all, because I think you guys are really special, and the amount of awesome art that's coming out of the Polish games industry is very inspiring. And yeah, it's just a pleasure to contribute. As you can see, I was very lazy. I reused the slide from somewhere else because usually I don't have an introduction slide. But for now, just to give you a little bit of context as to why we're talking about artificial intelligence here, I work for a company called Promethean AI. There's a few of us here too. If you want to, give these guys a hug, they work really hard to deliver an awesome future for you guys. And for the last 5 years, we've been building artificial intelligence that works with artists to help them build virtual worlds and help make these workflows, these pipelines, that much better, that much more inspiring, but also that much more artistic. And so there's a whole lot to say on that subject that I think we are not covering. And in fact, I've been trying to talk about it for the last 10 years. This talk is a sequel to another talk that has been done in 2019, which in turn was sort of building on the talk from 2017 that was building on a talk from 2013. So what you have to take away from this, I guess, is A, I'm old, but also B, that a lot has been said on the subject, and a lot of the time I get to feel like this because, just going up on stage talking about how we need to empower artists, how artistry is important, how we're not focusing on the right things. And so, especially today, in this bigger context of, everyone's talking about AI. Like, you can't pass by a toaster without it telling you about its AI features. It's very challenging for me to figure out a new angle on it because 5 years ago when we were talking about, oh, here's all of the cool AI things that are coming, beware, it was novel, nobody was talking about it, but also nobody kind of believed. Now that all of that stuff has happened and you're hearing about it from everywhere, what is the valuable perspective to take? And so also, just to trip myself up, because it's interesting, I figured, what if I do the conclusion at the beginning? So this is what we're going to be doing right now. And this kind of introductory part is also, in part, the conclusion. And what I want to make sure you guys take away from this, which is this is not just about what we can do with AI, but more importantly, what is it doing to us? How is it going to change how we perceive our job? How is it going to change our interactions, our dynamics on the team? How is it going to change you thinking about a long-term career in games, and what does that mean for you? And so I feel like the sentiment that I've been confronted with when it comes to AI for many, many years now is basically this, a lot of the time, talking to our teams. And there's angles to it, but this is the one that is most distressed. This is the one from the people that worry most. If you go on Twitter on any given day, that is probably what you're going to see in relation to art. And you know what? I think that it's not unfounded. And when I say we here, I mean people like me who go up on stage and talk about education, game development, and I feel like we have not done a good enough job of talking about what is important about our careers, what is important about the art we produce, what is important about the video games we produce, and that is the outcome of that. And it kind of feeds into this very old talk from 2013, where we were basically talking about how our industry conflates tools with whole career path. If you imagine 300 years ago, you were saying, I want to be an artist, I'm going to go study pencils. People would be like, this is stupid. Today, you're like, I want to be a 3D artist, I'm going to go study Unreal, or I'm going to study Maya, and it seems reasonable. Why the hell is that reasonable? And I feel like the tricky part for me there is that a lot of our sort of self-worth as artists, especially as starting artists, so many times is just invested into knowing which buttons to press, into which software. There's way more Houdini user groups than there is good composition appreciation groups. And I feel like that is a problem. I don't think that we're doing it right because we're valuing the wrong things. And so kind of the core takeaway, right, is we are not our tools. That is just the first thing that we will have to reconsider because of artificial intelligence. You can't say, oh, I'm a specialist in this, hence I have a job. Tools are going to be irrelevant at one point or another, and the value is going to have to be derived elsewhere. And there's a very easy analogy for you guys. In music, You can play any instrument and still be terrible at composing music. Your ability to execute has nothing to do with your ability to compose. But that is your job. Your job is to create art, is to be creative, to have ideas, not to be recreative, not to just play the tune that someone has written down. And so this is where we're going. And I highly, highly recommend you take some time to internalize, to think about that. What does that mean for you? Which part of your job is the composing versus the playing, the executing of the music? And there's the other angle to it, right? One part is education. And in education, it's interesting because also, if I'm a software provider, it's very convenient for me to convince you that knowing my software is the key to having a job, right? I want you to think that all, sculpting is ZBrush, for example, or, something else, instead of saying, oh, it's, 8 years of shape and anatomy and all of the studies that you have to do. And so all of the marketing and advertising that you're seeing about getting into the industry is based around that. It's like, oh no, just learn this tool and you'll be fine, you'll get all the jobs. And so that's one angle. But then there's the other angle, which is how do we structure our teams? How do we structure our companies? How do we structure our businesses? And that is also has been feeding that sort of frenzy that has come from AI, because we've been fragmenting and fragmenting and fragmenting our workflows. We have been fragmenting our positions. The longer you've been in the industry, the longer you've seen these jobs become more granular. We have people that spend a year modeling car wheels for GTA, and then somehow they're supposed to feel like they are a creative part of a bigger project that they're contributing to and having a creative vision and a purpose. So if your entire job is pushing 3 buttons in that one software, then sure, you will feel like, oh, my dreams are being taken away, I'm being deprived of this career that I wanted. And so there's dual responsibility to be taken. Part of it is education, part of it is us, part of it is our teams, and how do we organize that. And so another lecture down there that if you have a moment, actually I did it at Digital Dragons in 2018, so if you were there you may have seen it. But yeah, so the other part of it is just going to be transitioning your frame of thought from, oh, I am sort of this small, narrow field of expertise that I'm being given in my position, to, oh, I'm here to make the best game possible. And I win when the game wins. I'm not here to make a portfolio piece, which unfortunately you see quite a lot in the industry when you hire people that will do something that is better for their portfolio than the game, which is not great. Don't do that. And so I think the way I think about it a lot, just in general, sort of how do we see our profession and what is changing about it, I think about the drummers in the military in the 18th century, because at some point we're like, oh, maybe everybody should shoot, and then that guy's like, well, I like playing the drums. Like, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes we realize that in some professions, we serve the final outcome. If you're in the military, maybe banging the drum doesn't really work anymore, and it's all about your efficiency. If you're in video games, maybe you like sculpting everything by hand. At some point, it doesn't work because the goal is to deliver the best game possible. And our job is to try to bring you back into the fold, make you feel empowered, make you feel like you're contributing to delivering the best game possible, rather than saying, oh, yeah, this little slice is all you will ever get to do. And so another interesting thing here that has to do with all of this, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, and this is general observation, is that I think the people I find most concerned about artificial intelligence are kind of are inversely correlated with experience. Meaning the more junior you are, the more worried you are, because you open up whatever the latest Mid-Journey drop, you look at an image and it's like, this is better than what I can do. Why do I need an education? That's it, I'm done. Like I shouldn't continue down this path. There's no jobs. And this is not entirely true. We'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about ethically sourced models, which is quite important. But I think conceptually it is quite important to understand is that ability to contribute to the overall project, that ability to have creative ownership and sort of impact alleviates that fear, because you're realizing that you're not just that tiny, tiny job, and we're going to have to work on that to make that better. And to illustrate that point, I think something that is quite important, and I'm gonna pretty much die on that hill because I had a lot of arguments about technology with people, and my take on it is that technology does not raise the bar. It raises the floor. Meaning when we are, say back at Naughty Dog making games, when something like MetaHuman comes out, it makes no difference whatsoever, because we've been scanning people for a few years now. We have all of our base meshes. We are very deliberate and specific in what we need, and so whatever MetaHumans can provide adds no additional value. So when you are raising the bar, the tools don't do much for you. The idea is, though, that for everybody that could never do that, for everybody that never had access to that, all of a sudden many more people can start making that. And so when you think about it that way, we're kind of transitioning from, you know, trying to do the base minimum, and I do believe we have a graph for it. Okay, we'll get there, to the graph. But basically what happens in this process, right, is we require specificity. We require assigned meaning. This is from another lecture from, 6 years ago, and this is basically talking about how the creative process in any sort of compelling AAA space fundamentally requires you to assign meaning. There's an endless sea of possibilities of how you can do things. And to give you an example, right, working on Uncharted 4, we had a level where Drake is washed up on an island, he's alone, he lost all of his friends, you know, he lied to his wife, he's like at the bottom of the bottoms, and he's broken. And we need to communicate that to you through art. And so in that section of the game, in that level, there's no accidental choices. You know, we have a giant library of foliage in the game, but every piece of foliage in that level is pointy and sharp and dangerous and is meant to intimidate you. We can use any color we want in the universe, but that level, everything is blue and cold and miserable, and every surface is wet and everything is muddy, and that is because we are deliberately assigning meaning to every single part of the experience to manipulate our audience into feeling and thinking the things we want them to feel and think. And so that is where the value comes in. This is how you differentiate yourself from everybody else that makes games. It's not that you know how to move polygons. It's not that you scan some heads or some faces. It's that you could make a deliberate choice to affect someone emotionally in a way that further reinforces the big picture that you're trying to communicate. That is the core of the job. And so when we're talking about art being a process of assigning meaning, that's fundamentally what we do. When we're making Joel, we're like, okay, yeah, he needs a scar here, he needs to have that facial shape. Off-the-shelf solutions don't work, which means that this is where we want everybody to be. We want everybody to be contributing to the big picture. We want everybody to be thinking about how to assign meaning to every single part of the job instead of being lost and confused in which button to press. And it's interesting because I would also get, you know, a bunch of questions like, oh, years ago, what does an art director do, for example? And you know, there's a lot of big parts to it, but I love breaking it down like that, where right now you're going to get a lot of people with that just starting that, you know, can take a piece of work 0 to 60%, right? You can have something that you ship it in a pinch, but you probably wouldn't want to. And then as you go further, the amount of skill that it takes to take it a few percent extra requires years and years and years of education. And so something that you find, especially towards the end of production, right, as a senior artist, as an art lead, as an art director, your job is to look at people's work and say, how do I add 3% more on top of it? Like, if we can push it 3% more, that's fucking fantastic. And that is the hardest part. That takes all of the time in the world. Like, we're getting to that baseline, and then from there, where the real thinking starts. And so this is kind of the graph. And there's something called the Pareto optimum, which is like a really old thing that basically explains that 80% of the work takes 20% of the time, which is, let's see if it works, is just getting to here. And so this is getting to the baseline. This is like, oh, I got a meta-human head. What do I do from there? And then this is where all of the time goes afterwards. Is like, how do I make it special? How do I make it unique? How do I make it differentiated for my product? How do I make it into a thing that makes people come to my game and not other people's game? And that is the part that we forget to think about a lot because of how complicated and confusing technology is, because of how self-attached we are to tools as sort of representation of our professional identity. And that's honestly tough, but also even being on the side of like trying to build teams, direct people, something that you'll find really quickly is that you will hire most people that think this is their entire job, and then they just sit there and they're like, well, tell me what to do. And we don't want that. You don't want that. You know, you've gotten into this industry not to just be handed down a list of instructions. You've gotten into this industry to be creative, to be inspired, to contribute your ideas, and you're gonna have to own that at some point. And so, yeah, like, I think in my experience, it takes about 4 years for an environment artist to start caring about composition. You know, like, if people go through their career and they're like, okay, I figured out how to model things. Here's some assets. Look at my whatever substance graph. And you're like, cool, how do you do color palettes maybe? And it's like, you know, nothing, because just paying so much attention and time to it is a very laborious and time-consuming process. And most artists that I had to hire that are, you know, below senior level are basically very focused on like quality of execution and like maybe a lot of details. Like, let me throw in, you know, a bunch more whatever noise so that it feels compelling. But then we just have to start teaching people, like at year 4 or 5, of like, okay, well, let's look at some cinematography, let's dive into some great movies, let's talk about lighting, let's talk about color, because these are the things that are making a difference. And I would say have a pretty much a crisis of education around that in the industry, because we're not getting enough of that, because everyone is focused on their own things. And so, to break it down a little bit simpler, and across every vertical that might apply to game development or any other profession for that matter, we have our creative problem space, and then we look at it and we say, oh, you know what would solve this? Maybe we should make all of the colors muted and blue so that it's sad and scary here, for example. And then someone is going to have to spend 2 days going around and like adjusting all of the lighting, maybe tweaking some materials, and the value that you've created for your audience that's going to come in and say, oh, this is differentiated, this is interesting, this is novel, isn't that tiny part. And then all of this that we're doing is just accounting for imperfect technology. And so there's basically no future that exists in which that time does not go to zero. It might not happen in 5 years, but it will definitely happen in 10 years. And then the question is, what are you doing for a job, right? Are you focused on the execution part, or are you focused on creative problem solving? Are you thinking about lighting, colors, composition, art direction on every single level? And so going back to people being pissed, I feel like this applies slightly more to the US, where education is crazy expensive, but just trying to get back on that page of like, well, why are people pissed? And that is because we did not tell them what the job really is. There's all of this information bombarding people and saying, oh yeah, it's the tools, the buttons, the whatever online communities that are gonna praise you for this thing, but not the other thing, instead of saying, hey, art is light, color, and composition, and has been for the last 1,000 years. So just focus on that. And so I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I've seen a lot of points of view where people say, it's here, it's inevitable, deal with it, get over it. And I don't feel like that is the best way, because I feel like we can have empathy for people in those situations, because they did not choose that. They wanted to be a part of this industry. They love this industry, they want to contribute, yet somehow we failed them on the way of becoming a part of it. We did not assign the right priorities. We did not welcome them in a way that would be the most constructive. And now technology is coming in and undermining all of it. And so if you're one of those people, if you're pissed, first of all, I'm sorry, but also we're still here for you. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of exciting things to do. And we're going to try to cover more of them down the line. But I feel like first, just for us as an industry, especially if you're in some position of influence, you're running teams, you're running companies, we can try to stand for these values that we represent. We can say, you know what, yes, if AI is inevitable, and we know that it is in so many ways, if we know that execution time is going to shrink to zero, if we know that we're going to want everybody to contribute creatively, we're going to have to adopt these as values, which is that we're all game developers first, right? We're not we're just hiring smart people to make a portfolio piece for themselves and trying to benefit from it. We're all here to make a game, and we should treat people like they're here to make a game. Not to make a piece of art, not to make a piece of code, to make a game, and we are all responsible to the audience and nobody else. The other part that comes out of it is that we all deserve input in some capacity. How do we make people feel like they can contribute to the final product? Because if they don't, then if they can make anything with AI tools, they'll just go do their own thing, right? We need to give people reasons to work with us, and that is one of them. And that is trying to bring more people into the fold, try to create a healthy, inspiring work environment where we can benefit from people adopting these new tools as well. That I feel like is valuable, because once again, the expectation of a lot of people that start is like, well, I'm gonna do what I've seen on the YouTube tutorials, and then somebody will tell me what to do after. It's like, no, you are here to raise the bar. Give me, like ChatGPT, give me 10 suggestions for how we're gonna raise the bar today. I feel like everybody should do that mental exercise. And then the other one, obviously in this particular context of how do we define our values for the people to join this industry and be inspired and be welcome and feel like they're focusing on the right things, we should be articulating that tools themselves are not what makes you a game developer. Tools themselves are not what makes you a professional. They're just a means to an end, and they're going to continue shifting and adopting, and we don't value you because you know which button to press in Houdini or Substance, but because you know what a good composition looks like, you know how to make a level fun, you know how to, I don't know, refactor a piece of code to be more reliable or robust, whatever else it is. And so even when we talk specifically about art and art direction, right? And this is, once again, from an older talk, future of art is art direction, meaning everyone is going to be art directing at any level of their work and just applying that bigger picture, that bigger vision onto smaller things. And I feel like just like we as companies, we as educators need to adopt new values, we also need people that are joining the industry to start acting like it, to realize that we're all destined for great things together in this industry. We're going to do a lot of amazing things. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. But you should also feel like that is what you're here to do. You're not here to do UV unwraps for the rest of your life. You're not here to, do collision meshes and LODs and whatever other unfortunate, useless nonsense that we have to contend with these days. You're here to make the best fucking thing anyone has ever seen in the world, and try treating that as the main goal of your job, rather than building a portfolio, impressing people on the internet. And so, yeah, that was the rant. That was the intro. I feel like we're making good time, and now we can actually talk about something that I feel like is a little bit more practical, which is basically not just creative future. At this point, it's a creative present. What are we going to do with it? And I think the focus here is just to try to give you a frame of mind, sort of a thought process on how to approach it in a way that would be constructive. It is quite general. We're going to talk a little bit about art, a little bit about code, a little bit just about general education. But I feel like the one thing that is valuable, and you hear from every toaster about generative AI. Analytical AI, not so much talked about, but I feel like it has a ton of value because fundamentally, aside from AI being a tool for building, it's a great freaking tool for learning. It's a great tool for understanding. It's a great tool for making yourself more robust and more knowledgeable on different subjects. And for example, just a very basic thing that everybody should be doing, if you're not, with AI that is very simple is every team call we have that is remote, right? We can just get automated transcripts of all of the conversations, and then we can feed them to another AI to just make a bullet point list of everything that's been said. You just saved everybody on the team, an extra hour a week probably sitting in all of these meetings. And this is not any generative thing that you're like, oh, is this going to take my job? This is doing the things that we don't want to do. We don't want to sit in all of these meetings. Take advantage of that. Like, just analyze the content that already exists. And then because it's posted and available, you can search for it and have it be discoverable later and just understand if you want to spend your time that way. So a very basic example of just how you are already sitting on both data and ways to simplify your day to give people more of their time back with analytical AI and not feel like it's threatening any part of your job. So very simple example. This one, and let's see if I can do it live because I feel like it might be more fun. Let's see. I'm just going to go in, grab a piece of code from our code base, and then I'm just going to paste it into ChatGPT. And I think what's going to happen here is we're going to get a breakdown of what this piece of code does, right? And it's nothing novel. Everybody can do that. We do that extensively at work, or at least we try. And the value here is not that we've generated something for you. The value here is that we've helped you learn, we helped you understand through this stuff, and we help you, become more resilient or robust. Because I can just go in and say, oh, where can here be bugs, right? There you go. You just kick off a whole bunch of suggestions. And so as you are making things, as you have ideas, as you're working on some script for Maya or whatever else in between, you can use this tool not to generate stuff for you, but to explain things for you, which is extremely powerful, extremely robust, saves a lot of time. And believe me, it's not going to be usable everywhere. Like, you're lucky if you can use it 10% of the time, and it's still going to give you errors. But it's a great start, and especially for the parts of your workflow that you're not super comfortable with just yet. And so at this point, when we got all of this breakdown, we can say, rewrite this code with these suggestions in mind, right? And there we go. We can just take a simple thing, understand it, break it down, get advice on how to fix it and improve it, and all of a sudden, we don't need AI to generate stuff for us, but we can have it explain it to us and make it simpler. And there's many interesting ways to adopt that. Oh, and yeah, now I'm going to try to do the same thing for some 2D and 3D assets, so that's going to be interesting. First of all, let's see. Should I run? Okay, let's do this. So let's say I have a bunch of assets in here, and I'm just going to, wait, can I talk into this? Oh, testing, testing. Hello. Okay, well, I'm going to do one-handed. Let's see how it goes. So you can have any digital assets on your computer, right? I have this pre-prepared, so I'm going to clean it up so you guys can see it work from scratch. I can take all of these assets, unlabeled, just random images, can be 3D files, can be whatever, and I can just dump them into an editor, right? And now what happens is AI is going to go through all of your content. It can be, like we literally have studios that have 200,000 pieces of reference for their project. They just dump it in there and they just start asking questions like, oh, here's all of the movies that are an inspiration for a game. Here's all of the other games that are an inspiration for a game. What we can do with it. And then in a few, right, it's 600 out 40 seconds. Oh, testing. No, okay. And now we should see this data come back any moment, depending on the Wi-Fi. I'm just going to take a sip of tea. Okay, well, while it's doing that, I think something that we can highlight is that you can do the same thing for Unreal. In fact, let me just fire it up in the background while we're talking. But there's going to be, a bunch of live demos, which I think is cool. You can do the same thing for Unreal and basically go ahead and add a bunch of assets, right? The same way, just select them in the Unreal browser, say add them to the library, and then just use language to find stuff, right? Like I've never seen this asset library. I can say, oh, what do I have for foliage here? Here's some foliage. What do I have for food? How about shields? Maybe. Okay, cool. There's some shield. Maybe helmets. So the ability to, without any labeling ever, and by the way, it's 2023. If anybody asks you to label anything ever again, just slap them across the face and run away. Like, we're done with this. This is a solved problem. Please, if you're still doing it, just don't. PrometheanAI.com, you can get this for free. And so, yeah, just the ability to comprehend content. And then when we go here, it's same with any kind of digital asset for inspiration. You can say, oh, show me examples of beautiful establishing shots, right? Establishing shots. And you can have an AI that has a comprehension of cinematography. Let's see if we hit, let me restart. Sometimes that happens with this Wi-Fi. Alrighty, you guys, it's getting there. In the meantime, you know what? I'll just pop up this as an example. Don't you just love live demos? Okay, so that has been opened. That is good. And then let's see the browser. Cool. So let's see. Beautiful establishing shots. Sorry for slow one-handed typing. And then what happens is you just get suggestions and inspirations for like, oh yeah, I should consider this. Or maybe, this is not a bad idea. Like, oh, I like that. Maybe you want to get cool lighting ideas, right, that are in tune with your art direction or your project. You say, show me some good golden hour lighting. Same deal. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, there's some cool ideas. And so as an artist, you can just use this to analyze, to give yourself ideas. You can say, I don't know, composition with two women being close, because that's what Last of Us was about. And, you should get some examples. And the fact that we can understand and comprehend any type of content and give you ideas and suggestions is very powerful, because that means we don't have to generate stuff for you, but we can give you ideas. And I'm going to kick off something else here, and it's more of an experimental feature, but it's kind of fun. You can go in and ask Promethean to, let's see, design a hipster Coachella outfit, just because. And it's going to be doing some thinking for like 20 seconds. But the fun part is that because we can have all of the AI comprehension, we can ask it for anything in the world, you can have a library of reference, a library of ideas that applies to your project, and then just say, oh, give me some ideas, yeah, for whatever, outfits, or maybe, design me a 18th century Japanese outfit, and you just get all of that reference, and off you go. And so we obviously don't have the assets for this, but if you just look at the list, right, we're like, okay, yeah, sure, you need a beanie and Birkenstocks and a bucket hat and whatever else it is, and a choker. And so the idea is that you can interrogate your content in so many ways that you've never considered. You can say, oh, you know what, I have all of this data. I have my 3D assets, I have my 2D assets, and I can have AI compose, suggest, jumpstart my imagination in so many interesting different ways. So jumping back into the presentation, we're going to shift gears a little bit into generative AI, but there's going to be a little bit more sort of the kind of creates that bridge between analytical and generative. And I feel like the first thing that we want to talk about is this. Can anybody tell me what this is? And I'll give you a hint. Artists are terrified of this. Anyone? Any ideas? Okay, you know what it is. It's a blank piece of paper, blank canvas, blank slate. This is the only thing that will make you waste time like nothing else, just sitting there staring at it. And so even 20 years ago, when I was doing watercolor paintings, this was a legit and exciting method to do art, where you just splatter some watercolors on a page, and then you just look at it and try to see what you find in there. And then you just paint on top. And so nothing is new about this. We've been using tools to augment our imagination, to start our creative process for centuries. And even more recently in digital design and concept art, I don't know if anybody remembers this software called Alchemy, where you would just take random vector shapes and they would serve as like design language. You're like, oh, I'm designing robots. Let me take some engine bits and just scatter them on a canvas and then see what I can find in there for design. Like we've been using that, forever, all of these ideas for design. And so what we know for a fact is that blank canvas slows us down. We know for a fact that we want ideas, we want to jumpstart our imagination, and we use tools to do that. We've been using that for a long time. And so the one piece of advice that I always give to people about generative AI in general is that it shouldn't be final content in any way, shape, or form, because it's much better when it is a jumping off point. As we talked about before, you want to spend your time making the differentiating proposition of your product, making something that is unique to your game that other people will come to you to. So what you want to do is free up your time from doing literally anything else. If I ask any one of you working at a game studio, what do you spend most of your time doing? You're lucky if you spend 10% of your time just making that unique differentiating proposition, because you're probably just dealing with a ton of garbage on any given day. And so flip that script. You should be doing it the opposite way, and you should be using tools that help you do that. And so obviously a simple idea, just using AI to generate suggestions for stuff. Like if you're a student, I'm like, oh, I want a job at Blizzard. Give me 10 ideas. Then don't sue OpenAI for, if you don't get the job. But there's some suggestions. Try them, interrogate them. Say, oh, I like this, but how do I make it interesting? How do I include, a big sculpture? How do I include this? How do I include that? Start your imagination. Don't feel like you have to, sit in your ass and wait for it to happen automatically. And use it to do things you don't want to. Like, I hate social media with a passion. And so whenever someone's like, we should post a tweet about something important that happened for the company, I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT. You know what? It helps. And so there's the other part. There's all of these things that you want to do, and you're like, oh, is AI going to take that? There's the other part. How about all the things you don't want to do? Can you try those off and focusing on the fun stuff? I feel like that is a good example. And then, so when we're talking about generative AI, we touched on that a little bit with the code and explaining code. But something that I really love about that is that you don't have to go deep because you can go wide, meaning, for example, you have a lot of engineers on any one of your teams, and you have nowhere near enough technical artists because you never have enough technical artists ever. You know what you can do? You can take any engineer, give them ChatGPT, and just have them ask questions. Boom, they're a technical artist. They'll write Maya scripts like it's nobody's business. And it doesn't take anything. And the idea is that it doesn't go deeper in your current domain. It just makes you that much broader. All of a sudden, you can do more things that you didn't know you can do because you have this thing as a translator. And just like with art, when you don't have a blank canvas, you can go so much faster. With code, you give me a piece of code that kind of does what I needed, even with errors, like I'll fix it. I'll make it work. It's still going to be a million times faster. And same for artists, right? If I'm an artist, I don't know how to script too much, but I know that I have to open 100 files and rename a thing to another thing. I don't want to sit there all day. Just do this. Just focus on things that are not particularly in your domain. You'll be happy. But then even with the domains that you are familiar with, which is also funny, because I do believe at some point I had a micro meltdown with work, and I recorded a video. I was like, I just asked ChatGPT to write this thing for me, and I learned 5 different things that I had no idea about in Python and Qt. And you know what? It was cool. I got to learn. It was very valuable. And so that is the other part. When we talk about analyzing, when we're talking about suggestions, how often are you exposed to ideas of other people that are very competent, that potentially hold the combined aggregate expertise of all of the internet? Granted, internet is wrong a lot of the time, but it's still good to be exposed to all of these ideas. And so don't take it for granted. It has a lot for you. Okay, so images. Ooh, images are an interesting part because that's obviously been a hot topic these days. A lot of discussions, a lot of conversations, and I think my take on it so far has been if Midjourney or Stable Diffusion can give you a result that you think has to go into the final game, then you have not spent enough time thinking about how do you differentiate yourself from what other people are doing. And fundamentally, there's no future in which everyone is not doing that. So whatever you just take out of it is going to be of no value because there's no for people to tell the difference, for people to say, oh, why am I coming to these people for this experience? And so I feel like that is a product of us not educating people about art the right way. I feel like we're going to do a better job. People are going to have to start caring about light, color, composition, specificity, and design in all of these things. And then you're going to realize that you can't use this as final art because you have to tweak, adjust, modify, make it work with what you need it to work. And so I do feel like that is quite valuable. I do think there's a distinction between sort of the more AAA space and some more sort of casual space as well. But we can talk about that later. But the one thing that I think is valuable to talk about is that there's a lot of legal crap happening around AI. There's a couple of talks here that hopefully you guys have seen. But I think the valuable one for us, right, as it's important for me personally, is there's a class action lawsuit against Stable Diffusion and Midjourney from artists whose names have been used explicitly as sort of inputs into these tools to create artwork in their personal style. And it has very questionable connotations to it. And full disclosure, I advised on that lawsuit on the side of artists, which is pretty uncommon for an AI CEO to be helping people sue other AI companies, but I do believe that we need better regulations. We need better responsible attitude to data and where we get it from and where we source it and how we work with it. And we're not there yet. As an industry, we don't know. So the best advice you're going to get from any kind of legal mind is basically don't use it as final art. Just like anything we get off the internet, for our game, our lawyers back at Sony would be like, change 7 things about it. That was like their just default answer. Just change 7 things, and then maybe you can use it. So that was a start. If you can't use it as, just inspiration. But the other part that I really like, we talk, with a lot of big studios that are considering these things, and it's amazing seeing some of those art teams say, you know what, we have legal approval to use it, but we're not going to until we see how the legal cases play out, because we want to make sure that we don't just best for production, but we want to do what's best for the art community. We want to do something, we want to live out the values that make other artists want to join us and work with us and know that we got their back and that we care about people. And so if you have an opportunity to do that, that's awesome. I understand that some people might not, and there's no judgment, but at the same time, it's a valuable thing to consider. And then, actually, before we get into that, one other thing that is interesting and kind of important technically to mention, and there's white papers demonstrating that basically anytime you use any of the diffusion-based models that are out there based on the Lion data set that is kind of the more popular one, there's a non-zero chance that any one of these AI models will generate an artwork that if an artist has made it and put it into your game, you could quite reasonably be sued for plagiarism. Meaning there's non-zero chance that any one of the artworks that you get out of it could actually end up as a copyright infringement and allow your game to be sued further down the line. And so a very easy get-rich scheme, if you guys, you guys heard it here first, find any one of the games that has user-generated content using AI that allows people to create their own assets, keep rolling the dice for like 1,000 times, and then do image search on the existing data set that you can just find the data set the way it looks like, find the ones that actually look really close to actual people's artwork, and then go to that artist and then sue that game company and make a lot of money. So that's basically, you can do that today, and there's a non-zero chance that you'll actually succeed. And so what that means, though, if you are a game company, you probably want to be aware of that. Because, once again, when you've printed, 5 million Blu-rays and send them across the world, and then someone's like, you cannot distribute them anymore because I'm suing your ass, it's going to be a very costly thing to do. And so just be aware. Okay, 3D stuff. So this is slightly out of date as of like 3 weeks ago, because I think there was a new white paper from from OpenAI. But as far as 3D generations, we get 3D generation. We get a lot of questions, and the interesting part is that I think the assumption in general in the technical space is like, oh, going from 2D to 3D is easy because you just add one more dimension. But that is not the case at all, because on top of just having, well, better topology, a lot more resolution, you need to have UVs that make fucking sense. But then on top of it, you have every layer of your BRDF that is also reasonable. It's not just color. All of a sudden, you need to have your albedo, your roughness. You need to have your normal map. You need to have whatever else it is, subsurface, mask textures. And that is an explosion in dimensionality. It is not just like, cubic progression where all of a sudden there's 3 dimensions. It's going to be like 7 or 8 more dimensions, which means just computationally, it's a very hard problem to solve at a level that's going to be compelling for AAA. And so just to give you some examples, can anybody guess what this is? Almost. It's a flower bouquet. Boom. See? 3D with AI is almost there. But then the other thing that I feel like is interesting is the latent space that has the sort of stores this like multi-model representation of language and concepts is also very different between 3D and 2D. This is the same prompt, but used for 2D versus 3D, and you can see how much more robust the 2D space is, not just sort of for, whatever, pixels, color, just knowledge of design, because that's another layer of dimensionality there that is going to take a while to cover and to have a data set that allows you to do that. And so, I guess in short, we generated like 3,000 models to see what they would look like, and that's the general takeaway is kind of like this. But yeah, and so speaking of the attitude to it, one is, it's a few years away. So do with that what you will. But then the other part that is interesting, and that might be more prevalent stateside, but also not too irrelevant here, which is that games are hard to make. They take way too fucking long to make. They need way too much people to make. And if there are parts that you can offload that do not directly contribute to people wanting to buy your game, then you should do that. And one of these things is outsourcing assets. At least stateside, I've been telling people for a decade now that there's no such job as a prop artist because all of them are outsourced. So for example, back at Naughty Dog or whatever else studio you pick, producing assets or 3D models is much less of like a cost center when it comes to a production, because all of them are outsourced. Make cool concept art, and then it doesn't really matter to you if you take that 2D image and you feed it to an AI or just send it to a vendor somewhere overseas to produce it for you. Like, it should affect your process. What should affect your process is design, color, shape, composition, all of these things that are relevant for the final look of the game. And so there's your consideration when it comes to 3D. And then, so we have about 3 minutes left. Let's see, maybe we'll be able to bleed into a little bit, but I wanted to try and give you a demo of what a world building process might look like with AI. So we're going to try and do that. In the meantime, once we run out of time, just feel free to ask questions or start thinking about your questions. But yeah, we're really close. So something that we talk about at Promethean a bunch, right, is this idea that wouldn't it be cool if artists could be the authors of their own automation? Meaning, right now, you need engineers to write some scripts to populate some points somewhere that can then be turned into whatever assets that are placed. And so the idea is, wouldn't it be cool if I, as an artist, can just make some examples and say, make this? Basically what AI can do for you, where instead of saying, oh, I'm going to be replaced by a pipeline or a workflow, I can say, here's how I like to do stuff. Here's like my idea for a forest. Can you just build me more of that? And so, this is what we're going to try and do. Once again, I'm going to be doing it one-handed, so I do apologize. I need to switch this project real quick. Then I'm just going to open an empty level where we can do that. Okay, switch into the project done. Okay. So I'm just going to do things for a second and not talk. So now that we've done that, right, the only thing I need Unreal for is basically to say, you know what, I want like a forest to be here. So you've seen that little section of the forest. The process for that is like, can you please memorize what I did, right? That was the entire workflow that we do on our side. And then all I need to do is just select this stuff right here. I'm going to outline this little perimeter, select these two things. Okay, the context is set. By the way, Promethean knows that it's in a forest. So now I can just say, you know what, could you build me a northern forest inside of this? And yeah, it's just that was it. You can see there's a little progress bar. There's going to be like, okay, let me see what kind of small details I can place around that. But the idea is that we show you the big picture, and then we start populating the small things, and all of it is learned from art. Like, that is kind of the core of it, is that you are infusing the tools with your own style, however you want to make it. And yeah, when the Wi-Fi is a little quicker, that also happens faster, and you can see the results. But that's kind of the core of it, is that the idea of the promise of AI is basically the tools are there to power amplify my creative ability, right? They're not there to say, oh, we don't need your input. It's quite the opposite. It's like, we need you to define what's good and beautiful and artistic, and then we're just going to go in and sort of assemble and populate and build this space. And so, yeah, there's a bunch more, but I do, oh, down to 1 second. Okay, we have exactly 0 seconds left. So I feel like we're just going to stop here. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. And we're excited to, give you guys a lot more demos further down the line.
Please walk up to the microphone here.
First of all, thank you for your talk. It was a really, really good talk. I wanted to ask you about the tools and the speed of development of the tools. You said that the tools are bringing the floor up. Aren't you afraid that with the exponential growth of AI capabilities, the floor is going to be going up much faster than the humans are able to follow up with their development?
I think it's inevitable in some capacity, but I feel like we have a good analogy, which is the movie industry, right? It's like, oh, all of a sudden, somebody can shoot cinema quality experiences on their phone, and then, where's the value in that? Like, all of us are carrying in our pockets countless hours of useless videos that nobody wants to watch. And so the question just becomes, well, how do I get people to pay attention to what I'm doing right now? Which brings it all the way back to telling a compelling story, having good light, color, and composition. So in that sense, it's almost like a very capitalist answer of like, people are just not going to want to give you money for something that is not differentiated. Yes, the floor is going to be up, but then all that means is now you have to actually give people something of value, something that they want to, pay money to spend time with, but also pay their time too, because people have a limited amount of time in their day, and the fact that they will choose you means that you made something really special that connects with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so you mentioned artists who have been in the industry for under 4 years and who have been taught like the tools, but not necessarily like how to use them well, which is definitely my university experience. And I guess I'm wondering like, what would you kind of recommend to somebody like me to like learn stuff like composition and all the kind of fundamentals?
First of all, I'm very grateful for that question. Thank you for asking. Thank you for caring. And it's funny because at work, we find ourselves reposting all of these channels on YouTube, just called Amazing Shots From. And it's just literally some of the best cinematography out there. And we just spam the shit out of it and everywhere and just discuss art calls where we just go over it and it's like, why is this beautiful? And so I feel like that is a great starting point. There's just a lot of rich cinematic tradition. You can go all the way back, in history to like, I don't know, Vittorio Storaro, and I mean, obviously Roger Deakins, like for the last 40 years have been making some amazing things. Just look at that and figure out what it takes to recreate. And I feel like something else that is very of value that is, I feel like is not done enough is literally lighting studies. You see a few people do them here and there, but if you just find something amazingly inspiring and then you practice recreating the atmosphere, the rest of the stuff kind of comes about. Something that you'll find in an actual production when you have limited time and budget, it's much more practical to set up an amazing mood first with good color and lighting, and then you kind of start throwing in assets. If the assets are half-baked, most of the time nobody will even care if the lighting is amazing. So just do that, and then I feel like you'll be in a good place, which is basically lighting. I feel like it's the secret sauce of so many amazing experiences. And just for reference, right, like the lighting team at Naughty Dog probably is like 15 people now, which is a lot of lighting. It's not environment artists, it's not texture artists, just people sitting there all day, just applying lights to environments and like faking them aggressively. If you look at how movies do it, there's no real lighting, like, or I mean some, you know, but if you just look through the lenses, like there's a light over here, there's a light behind here, just do that. Just think about lighting, and I feel like it's going to help a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, right now I think we are out of time. A quick question?
Yeah, thanks for an insightful talk. Of many domains where video games make use of AI, where do you see the least presence of AI and you perceive like the largest future growth within like next few years?
That is a good question. I feel like there are things that are hard to standardize that might have value that aren't there just yet. Like I know there's been a lot of investment in, for example, just testing and QA. And it might work if you're making like a match 3 game, but for bigger, 3D productions, it's hard. And also testing is kind of the less creative part of the job, where even people that work in testing a lot of the time have aspirations to actually be on the development team and contribute the art and the code. And so I feel like that is one of those things that we're going to see a lot more of. And then, yeah, on our side, I mean, we're obviously just excited about world building. I feel like, we're just scratching the surface as an industry, and give it a couple of years, and most of our world building is just going to be like, build me this. Oh, this looks cool. Move this over here. It's like that. You're going to be an artiste tweaking your mustache and just wearing your beret, and it's going to be great.
That was the last one. So great speech. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, everyone.